So one of the things that I love doing is debating which movies are Christmas movies. Die Hard absolutely is a Christmas movie, and I can give a detailed explanation as to why to anyone who would like to know my rationale at a later time. Another series that is definitely a Christmas series is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Not just because they all came out in December and I still have crystallizing memories from my own time as a Kenyan student and taking off during finals week to catch midnight showings in Columbus, which is absolutely something we did like every single year of our Kenyan experience. But not just the movies themselves, but indeed the original book trilogy have significant resonance with Christmas. Does anyone know, and I know we have a thin congregation, but we have some nerds here, when did the Fellowship leave Rivendell? What was the date? It's December 25th. The Fellowship leaves Rivendell to go off on the quest to destroy the ring on December 25th. And a more pointed one, when is the ring cast into Mount Doom? I've talked about this one before. March 25th. Exactly. What's March 25th? It's in the bottom of our, if you catch the hymn we just sang, the dates. The Annunciation. Exactly. So the Ring of Doom, or the Ring of Power, is cast into Mount Doom on March 25th, which is in the liturgical calendar, the Feast of the Annunciation. And this is not a coincidence on the part of our incredibly Catholic writer, J.R.R. Tolkien. Right? There is a statement being made there, drawing connection with the destruction of the power of the ring with the Christian story. That from the moment that the angel appears to Mary and brings word of the incarnation, reality has changed. Something dramatic and powerful has shifted and been upturned. And we hear that from Mary herself, right? Our hymn that we sang, which I love the hymn, the Angel Gabriel, but it does paint that meek and mild picture of Mary. And then Mary meekly bowed her head and said, "Let it be to me." But in our lectionary cycle this morning on the fourth Sunday of Advent, as we sit particularly today, when the fourth Sunday of Advent and Christmas Eve come right up next to each other, we have the words of Mary's song, the words that Mary proclaims upon learning that she is indeed to give birth to the Messiah. And it is a powerful, bold statement of faith, belief in what is happening, not just to her, but indeed to the world. That in the promise of the birth of the Christ child, not in some form of power, privilege, authority, riches, and grandeur, but through her. An ordinary woman from a tiny, small town in a remote corner of Galilee, under the occupation of the most powerful empire in the world at the time. That is how God chose to enter our world. It is indeed a profound statement of lifting up the lowly, filling the hungry with good things. That is the good news of our gospel. And I think as we sit in this last little moment of Advent, before we enter into the full joy and celebration of the Christmas season, it is worth us as well sitting with the edge to that good news, the edge of Mary's song, That as God has chosen to lift up the lowly, to fill the hungry with good things, that also means casting down the proud, sending the rich empty away. One of the things that I talk about often through this Advent season is the structuring of this season. That we move from this broad, abstract hope and longing in the first Sunday of Advent to the particularity of all of that longing and hope coming down to one woman and her consent to be part of God entering our world. But there is a threat and an edge to that very particularity, that tangibility, because it means that the hope and the joy that we anticipate is not just abstract sentimentality, but it is about God touching and entering our world and our lives in particular ways. There is an edge which comes up against the powers and principalities of our world. I love that the lectionary pairs the story of Mary's Annunciation with our reading from the Old Testament. The story of David, the king, desiring to build a house for God. And it is such a powerful story of our human expectations, our human framing, our human understanding coming up against what is actually the reality of God. God does not desire, God does not seek to dwell among the rich and powerful, to dwell in a house that is elaborate and ornate with riches. Many of us are familiar with the Magnificat, especially if we are frequenters of evening prayer, because we read it over and over and over again. Less often do we read the Te Deum, that is often associated with morning prayer. And there's a powerful line in it that when God sought to redeem mankind, he did not abhor the virgin's womb. God, in entering our world, did not seek to inhabit power and glory and authority and riches, but chose to be carried and be born into our world in the most humble, vulnerable, ordinary way, through birth from an ordinary, humble woman of no consequence beyond the favor that God bestowed upon her. That is the powerful reality of our gospel that we anticipate as we are coming right up to the celebration of Christmas. And I wonder what it means for us to truly, really believe that. So we sort of talk about Christmas movies. One of the other themes that so often shows up in them is that question of belief, right? It is always about proclaiming belief in Santa Claus or in the spirit of Christmas. And it's always very abstract and sentimentalized, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. It's very heartwarming. We just recently rewatched Elf last night, and it's lovely to see the sleigh, Santa's sleigh, get powered by all of the people singing Santa Claus is coming to town. It's nice, but it is not the belief that we are actually called to embrace as the followers of Christ. What does it really mean to believe that the world has been changed and upended by what we understand to be true power, privilege, riches, is shifted, upended, changed by the manifestation of God entering our world in humility and vulnerability? What does it mean to really allow our lives to be upended and changed by that belief? I want to conclude with a poem that I just happened to come across this morning by the Christian author Kate Bowler, who some of you may know. But she wrote, "Jesus, this is the great inversion. I would not have known had you not appeared and made yourself small. Jesus, I would have been satisfied with the God who moves mountains and whose breath imparts life, but who never cried in his mother's arms. The world whispers to me about what must be done, about empires and war, about efficiency and strength. But there you are, a refusal. Your fragility, a witness. Your dependence, an invitation. Your cry, a reminder. Our finitude is not an embarrassment, because neither was yours. Blessed are we when we see love, at long last, in every small and tender thing, stealing into our world. Amen. Thanks be to God.